Welcome to Jane's Place, where dreams learn to fly. Season 2, the Strength Series. If you are new to Jane's Place, welcome. If you joined me last season, thank you for continuing the journey with me. For those of you watching this podcast, you see a picture of me from the summer of 1995. I was just promoted to division president at Frito-Lay, the highest ranking woman at Frito, and the first woman in a president role. At 36, I was at the top of my game, and it's pretty evident from the look on my face, the glass of champagne, and the cigar that I thought I was somebody important. And maybe I was. But within 6 months, there would be a reorganization at Frito, and my position would go away. I would move into a role that was clearly a demotion, and within 2 years, I would leave the company. From hero to zero. From my vantage point today, the story of why I got demoted is not very insightful. What is insightful is that I did not have the tools to deal with this failure. I didn't realize that it was just one of many bumps in the road that I would have in both my professional and personal life in the years that have followed. I didn't realize that this was just part of my journey where failure and success are two sides of the same coin. I didn't realize that I would be a better leader and stronger person on the other side of this. Honestly, it hurt like hell and shook my confidence. So in season 2, I talk about passion again, and I ask most of my guests about resiliency and how they manage during tough times. Because it is not if we will have failure, it is just when. And when the win comes, and it will, do we have the tools to learn and grow from it? Thanks for joining me for the Strength Series. And spoiler alert, 30 years later, failure still sucks. On this first episode of Season 2, I am overjoyed to share my discussion with Terry Tierney, an iconic leader in the natural products industry, a mentor to so many people, and a dear friend and personal advisor to me. Not too many years ago, Terry and I were first brought together to speak on a panel about leadership. We immediately found that we were kindred spirits in our approaches to business and people. I have been blessed to not only have Terry in my life, but his twin daughters, Jess and Kenzie, have both worked with me. Jess joined me at Lily's, and Kenzie has worked with me at Haven, my career development startup, and now at Rudy's. Both of these young women continue to amaze and inspire me with their ingenuity, work ethic, and enthusiasm for life. But back to Terry. You can learn more about him at janesplace.com and his favorite comfort foods, which are central to Thanksgiving. All right, let's get to the meat of the discussion here. So, Terry, the impetus behind Jane's Place was to really talk to people that I care about and I want to learn from about what they're most passionate about. And what I have found over many conversations is that when people talk about what they're most passionate about, that you really sort of see each one of us show up in the world in like the most magnificent way. And I think what we're trying to do at Jane's Place is to provide inspiration for the next generation of leaders. And I think it starts with understanding what you care about and what you get excited about. It might not be what is your life's work, but something that is very important to you because that's kind of the core of who you are. So that's the background on that. And we have a lot of different passions, but if you were to say, is there one thing that really comes to mind that you're just so deeply passionate about?
It's funny because I sometimes think that we can confuse being really, really interested in and excited about doing things with passion. Mm-hmm. And I think that over time, those things change for me. There was a time when I was really, really excited about starting a business and growing up and building that company. And I can tell you, I was really, really excited and I had passion for that. What I've realized over time is that there's actually few things that when you when you conjure up passion, it is a hot flame that resonates from the principle level of what you are as a human being, not just from an interest level of what you're attracted to.
Right, right.
And so from an industry standpoint, if we're speaking to, younger generation of leaders coming in and assuming that mantle, I would tell you what I'm most passionate about right now in that regard is that we at our stage and age, we expend the energy and the investment into those people, that we give them the benefit of all the mistakes that we made, that we give them, the shared learnings of what we've acquired over this journey. And at the end of the day, this is what we have been working towards, is to help them climb up on our shoulders and see further and more clearly into what can be, and give them the little bits of wisdom, the nuggets that will help them get there with possibly fewer head dents and bumps and bruises
Right.
along the way. From a leadership standpoint, that's what I'm most passionate about these days. But I also have to share with you what drives me every day, and it consistently has been the bedrock of passion for me, has been evolving in terms of my ability as a person to do this one thing and do it better tomorrow than I did it today, which is just show up and love hard in any situation, whether that's work or it's my family or in the community, or trying to galvanize, energy around an interest or a project with other people. I don't always have the right answers, right? None of us do. But I just know that the one answer that never fails me is just show up. Just show up, and then just love hard as best as you can.
I love that so much. And I think that's so interesting, that I think that so many people are not present and showing up, that we're thinking about the past or we're hopeful about the future, but not sort of saying, how do we just be here at this moment and appreciate the moment? Did you have a time where like the light went on and you said, oh, I need to show up? Or has this kind of been part of your DNA as you've grown as a leader?
It's a great question, because the evolution happens over a long period, and sometimes the increments are so small that you don't get to have full awareness about the notching of those increments. But I would say that most of that awareness has come through the journey of being a part of my family, and having, first and foremost, an incredible partner in Jen, who every once in a while taps me on the shoulder and just says, hey, you better show up. We got some important stuff going on. And I know if you show up, I know you're going to bring that big heart, but with you, the challenge is showing up.
Right.
And so that's probably been the catalyst to that evolution. Not an epiphany. There wasn't a moment when I had like, oh, I want to do that better. It's just been that evolution.
And how do you instill that in your two daughters, Jess and Kinsey? Like, how have you passed that on to them? So maybe they are doing that in their 20s as opposed to later in their lives.
First of all, there's no intentionality around that for me. Because the work that I have to do on myself is too big to try to be working on anybody else, including the people that I love more than anybody,
right.
Jenny and the girls. And I fundamentally believe that values aren't taught, they're caught. And so if I'm trying to inculcate, and pass on that show up and love hard, I think the best way for me to do that is just do it.
Yeah.
Just be it. And if they decide that that's something that they want to incorporate and embrace and put their heart around that, then they'll do that. Quite frankly, I think they do it better than I do. And so I say that with the confidence, knowing that they teach me more about it than I'm able to teach them.
Well, this is such a good segue into what we're focusing on season 2, which is how do we as leaders and people manage through tough times? How do we show up with resiliency when things don't feel like it's going our way? And so maybe let's start with showing up and loving hard and how that might help you as you deal with times of stress. Or does it? I don't want to assume it does.
No. At this stage, I would say show up, love hard, is the way I approach everything. Even this moment coming in here, I don't have a lot of expectations about what's going to happen, but I know if I just show up and I'm heart-centered in the moment, we'll figure that out, right? We'll get to where we need to be. And so that's sort of my approach. To your question, I think that first of all, you have to recognize that life is going to throw you hard stuff.
Right.
That's what life does. And life doesn't do that, in my opinion. Life doesn't do that to punish you. Life does that for one very important reason, is because when you sit down and you talk to, people like you and I, or even better, people who are older and wiser than us, they will tell you, as we will, that the things that have occurred in our lives where we've learned the most and grown the most have been those moments that were the most challenging. And so I think that one, it's really important to recognize that life's going to do that to you, and there's a purpose behind that. I think the lesson that I've learned that I would love to, share with my daughters, and you in this moment, is that the transformation in my growth has come from when I realized that being resilient was not just about getting knocked down and getting up again, and doing that through the strength of will. Because that's what most people do, is they summon the will and the strength to overcome. And when I realized that actually resilience is the end benefit of what happens when you transform your relationship with that experience. And when you realize that what life is doing, it's giving you a gift. And the gift is, here it is. Here's a shit pie. And you're going to get knocked down and battered around. But the gift is what you're going to learn through this experience on the other side. That's going to bring you to higher ground. Emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, you're going to come out a better person. So when those challenges come at me, I realized, okay, I'm going to learn something here. No matter what happens, I'm coming out the other side a better person, a more evolved person, a smarter person. That excites me. Mm-hmm. It doesn't daunt me. So I'm no longer in the mindset where I'm summoning strength to find the will to overcome. I'm now dancing with excitement about what am I going to learn through this? What am I going to gain on the other side that will benefit me? And then ultimately, if I can share that learning with others, it will benefit them as well.
I love that. And a couple things come to mind, Terry. I mean, the first is this, how scary it is, though, like to be faced with something that is, so on one hand, it's great that, you're going to learn and you're going to get to the other side of it. But when you're in it, like it's super hard to be able to like have that vision that I'm going to be a better person and I'm going to get on the other side of it. So maybe talk for a second about like the being in the middle of the shit pie. Yeah. Like how is it like, looking to Jen or your daughters or friends, like, because the other thing that kind of came to mind as you were talking is sometimes it feels so lonely when you're going through a tough time. And I think the thing that was coming to mind as you were talking, and I know so much about your family and your friend group and everything, is just that we shouldn't have to do things alone. Yeah. Like, and so I don't want to put words in your mouth there, but those two kind of things, like, what do you do when you're in it? And how do you not be afraid to reach out
Yeah.
and not do it alone?
Yeah. So first I'll share an experience, that I had that was, that moment of eureka for me. That Kenzie and I did the Colorado Trail.
Yes.
And it took us 6 weeks. So we were, hiking for 40 plus days out there. And in the beginning, first of all, we figured out that we were not the same hikers. She's much stronger. She's much faster than me. So she would go off and we'd end up meeting someplace at the end of the day, midday and the end of the day. So a lot of time, and that's important to share because I was by myself a lot of the time on the trail. In the beginning, when I came across these uphills, I was like, what fucking shit, mountain. It's just, I'm going to beat you, you bitch. I'm just going to get to the top and I was fueling the ascent with that sort of like angry energy.
Right.
Like I was going to overcome. And somewhere about halfway through, having overcome enough of those mountains and gotten to the top and then on the downside, I realized the mountain wasn't my foe. The mountain was my partner.
Oof.
And all it was doing was its job to bring out my best. And once I realized that, I was like, okay, you and me, we're going to do this. You're going to give me your best and I'm going to give you my best. And so from the back half of that trail, I realized going up those mountains was a whole different experience than in the front half of that trail.
Wow.
Yeah. I was working with the partner of that mountain, me and that rock.
Right.
We're going to get to a place that was going to be so much better. And all it was trying to do was bring out my best.
Right.
And so I transposed that story into what happens when challenges come your way, right? Just realize that challenge is your partner in bringing out your best. Now, there are times, like you said, in those moments when you can't help but to have your focus go to some scary, frightening, dark places. In our culture, we equate those places not as the opportunities that they are, but more as threats. And when we treat them as threats, we assign them a positive or a negative value. And generally it's a negative value. And so it becomes very closely synonymous with failure, which taps into a whole nother cultural vibration that we don't do well with, which is failure equates to shame.
Right.
And shame is what keeps us in that isolated place, that we feel like we're failing. We're feeling like if I'm going to sit down with my friends or my family and say, I'm struggling, I'm having a really hard time, doing what I'm doing. And I've been there and you've been there. And you realize I can't share that because I'm embarrassed by it or I'm ashamed of that. Then it keeps us isolated and we're losing out on one of the most important resources that we have to climb that mountain, which is to depend on the love of the people who are showing up for us to help us with that. Right. And so getting through that, I think your question was, how do you?
Yes.
One is reorient your understanding of what's actually happening. The experience is doing only one thing. It's trying to bring out the best in you. Right. It's not about shame. It's not about failing. It's not about, being so scared that you can't reach out to people. In fact, the paradox of it all is it's the opposite.
Right.
It's the opposite. Turn it upside down and realize it's a gift that's coming your way. So how happy are you to share the gift of any other things that you assign a positive value to? You're really happy about that, right?
Yes.
Reframe the experience in a way that allows you to share that gift. I'm going through this. I know I'll get to the other side. Right now, I'm not so sure about it, but I have faith that I will. And why don't you come along with the journey and maybe you can help? Right. you've already shown up, which is part of the, the equation here. And I know you love me. And so together we'll go through it together. And look, I feel that way about you and what you're doing at Rudy's right now.
Yeah.
There's nothing I won't do to show up for you, right? And when I do that, Jane, I'm coming with all, not just what I got up here from experience and acquired wisdom, if any, is there. But I'm telling you, I'm gonna love you through it, and we'll figure it out on the other side, right?
Thank you for that. And I think the mountain analogy is so impactful, because I do think about the situation I'm in now. And one of the things that's been so amazing about doing this podcast is every person I've talked to, there's been this aha moment for me personally. And in this particular case, I think about my mountain analogy, that I am fighting as opposed to not partnering.
You're climbing up that mountain, and I can hear you grumbling and mumbling.
I am. When you're like swearing, I'm like, oh, that's me.
Throwing the swear word around every now and then, right? But at some point, I think you're going to realize, and there's a really important understanding here. You're going to realize that this mountain is your partner.
Yes.
In bringing you to higher ground. And one of the things that I had to reconcile was, hey, I thought by the time we get to this age, like, we are who we are, and we've kind of figured out a lot of stuff. But the fact of the matter is, the growth never stops.
Exactly.
Right? It never stops. So long as you're breathing, you are going to be challenged in a way to continue to evolve. And so here we are. We've got another mountain that we got to climb. And there's a reason we're doing that, because the universe wants to bring you to higher ground as a human being. Right. And so, yeah, I think that's one of the things, Jane, that if you can reframe the experience of climbing this mountain right now, I know it's scary. I know that it's frightening. I have been there. I know sleepless nights. I know single malt on a front porch swing by yourself at 2 a.m. trying to solve some problems. And every word of comfort that I can utter in today in that moment doesn't bring much, right? It doesn't, because it's just a scary time. But the one piece of advice is just recognize that there's an awful lot of people around you who are going to show up and are going to love you hard, and they're going to sit with you in those most frightening moments and help you get through it.
Well, one of the other things that you said that really struck me is this idea of connecting shame with failure. And I think that is, again, there's so many layers, I think, about fighting our mountain versus partnering with our mountain, and not even understanding all of the implications of how you feel about what's happening at any time. And so that's such an interesting connection that I don't know that I've ever really met before, because I've always been like you, someone I believe failure helps us. It helps define us. It helps makes us stronger. But I hate failing. Like failing, it sucks.
It does. It sucks. But I'm going to tell you, you wouldn't be who you are today, sitting in that chair with the capabilities that you have on all dimensions, right? Head, heart, and soul, without the failures that you'd had in your life, the so-called failures that you'd had in your life.
Right.
There's no question. And we teach this bad thing very early on in people's career development, experience. When we say, tell us your greatest strengths, right? In the interview process, of course, they're really happy to do that. And they are full-throated in the expression of their greatest strengths. Ask them what their failures are. And we're already, or their setbacks or the challenges, and we're already reinforcing that notion of shame equating to failure.
Yes.
In that moment, as a 22-year-old in that interview, right there. Rather than starting with, hey, look, I know you've had a lot of success, and you wouldn't be here having this conversation unless you had a lot to offer. But let's talk about what you've really learned.
Yes.
And you've learned from some of the hard times in your life where you might have failed. What have you gathered from that? Right? Imagine if we started those conversations in that interview on that dimension.
Right.
Right.
Well, yeah, and you're almost reinforcing the positive of that and how it brings up the strength of the person as opposed to making it feel like it's a weakness.
That's right.
And again, it's like you were saying about the mountain, it's a reframing of how we think about experiences and bring those both in our own lives and those of others that we care about, going back to your mentoring and wanting to make it get other people on your shoulders.
So important. Do you remember that panel we did a couple of years ago?
For
CU for Joe.
For Joe, yes.
Yeah. And one of the things that I told that audience of 100, I think they were, MBA students or new young executives in our industry. The last thing I said was failure is your friend.
Right.
Learn to embrace that and recognize you're going to have it. You might even have a lot of it in your career. You want more success than failure? The batting average needs to be, higher, but don't think you're going to avoid it. It's impossible. Nobody has ever avoided it. And what I can tell you now is we are, serving more time on boards and looking for young leaders to run companies and take over that mantle of leadership. One of the key criteria that I always look for is I'm looking for somebody who's gotten kicked in the teeth.
Mm-hmm.
I want somebody who knows what hard looks like. And they've come out the other side recognizing the value of what it means to go through hard and to go through hard and have acquired that positive attitude that says, first of all, I can handle hard. Second of all, there's always good to come out of it. Our company will be better. Our team will be better. I will be a better leader. Those are the blessings that come out of those hardships. And so to bring it back to resiliency is another one of those things in our culture that I would love for us to reframe. It's not about summoning the strength to overcome the challenge. It's about reframing the experience of that mountain so that you recognize it's your partner in helping you to evolve to become your best. That's the highest calling of being resilient, right? The low vibration calling of resilient is you got to get so tough that you can overcome anything.
Yes.
Right? That's the low vibration. The high is to recognize the real purpose of being resilient is so you can acquire more gifts, the gifts of learning, the gifts of growing to evolve as a human being, as a leader, as a parent, as a friend, as a husband, as a spouse.
Wow. Well, all I can say is I feel like I've just had this most amazing session with the best psychiatrist I ever could have been with. but
I share all of this through my own mountains.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And not just on the Colorado Trail, but if you're willing to pay attention, then you will get you'll acquire some of those, people will acquire some of those learnings. And I've been fortunate enough to pay attention some of the time to get there.
Well, I feel like it's so powerful to be able to say, we're going to just keep learning and we got to keep growing because in some ways you think, oh my gosh, you want to get to a certain age and you know everything and it's all, but it's not like that. And I think you have to embrace the fact that you don't want to be that person that is stuck and isn't trying to get better and to learn more and know that, that there's no playbook here.
That's right.
There is no playbook and you could do a couple things right over here and you might try to bring him to another situation and they don't work at all. And you got to be okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah. You can look back over our 40-year careers, 40 plus years, and just say there have been so many unique meteors that have come in and hit our industry, right? Consumer packaged goods. And one of the first was, I remember when microwaves came and no one ever thought that people would cook their food in this box that shot waves of energy through it. And it was just like, what, that happened. And then when Walmart decided to get into selling groceries and everyone thought, no, they'll never succeed. That will never happen. That happened, or the .com era, right? You can buy your food online and it's going to be delivered to your house there's always a meteor that's going to come crashing into your world. And the sooner you develop that skill to relate to those challenges as an opportunity to acquire the gifts that will evolve you as a person, as an executive, the more you're going to be able to take advantage of it.
I love it. I love it. Well, I would have to say, of all the things we've talked about, show up, love hard is so memorable. And Earl has got a whole list of Earls of Wisdom, and I think that's going to be on his list.
You know what? Like I said, in that moment when I'm mixing my mashed potatoes and cranberry sauce and gravy, at the end of that meal, in that experience, where comfort food becomes one word, he has taken those two words, love hard, and made it one word. It is, he does both in a way that it's one word, love hard.
That is great.
Terry,
Terry, thank you so much for this today. This is really so inspirational.
Always my pleasure.
Show up, love hard. I could probably stop my reflection right there, as those words say it all. To be present in the world and bring your full heart to every situation takes a special kind of courage. Terry said that life is going to throw hard stuff our way. And don't just try to have the strength to overcome the hard stuff, but instead try to learn the lesson that the hard stuff is giving us. Why are we being given this particular challenge? It isn't to try to get through it. It is to learn from it as part of our personal growth. He had a very poignant analogy about hiking the Colorado Trail and not fighting the mountain, but partnering with it. And the idea that tough times can signal failure, and failure can equate to shame, and shame is a very lonely experience. Well, that really hit home for me. With so much to take away from my conversation with Terry, these are the questions I pose to myself and to you. First, let's think to a tough time when we've had to ask ourselves, what did we learn in that situation? Second, how can we reframe a perceived failure into an example of how we got stronger or better? Finally, how do we not try to face these inevitable tough times alone? Who can help us think beyond the pain to get the life lesson that is there for us? My dog Earl decided to take Terry's show up, love hard, and add his own little spin to it. Now let me turn the mic over to Earl, who is the sponsor of Season 2 with his Happy Hug Box, and will now be proudly adding to his Earls of Wisdom, show up, hug often.
Hey, Earl here, Chief Hugs Officer at Jane's Place. After joining almost every episode, I discovered my passion, and that passion is giving hugs. Hugs, hugs. I also learned something pretty important along the way too. When things feel hard or uncertain, and sometimes even when life is exciting, words aren't always enough. But showing up for someone is. And by adding a hug, you say, I care. So I've started a hugs movement to kick off 2026. I just know the world can be a better place if we are generous with our hugs. But since I can't be everywhere, I've created Earl's Happy Hug Box. It's a special gift box curated by me, and inside there's a comfy, life-size plush that looks just like me. I call him Earl Jr. Plus a few other fun things are included too. Now, if someone came to mind while you were listening or watching today, this might be for them. Or might even be what you could use right now. You can learn more at janesplace.com/Earl. But for now, I'll leave you with one of my Earls of Wisdom. Show up, hug often.
Special thanks to my amazing producer, Aditi Joshi, for her partnership in creating Jane's Place and all her hard work behind the scenes to make Jane's Place so special. I am also grateful that my Chief Hugs Officer, Sir Earl Grey has a real voice thanks to my good friend, Jake Dawson. And Jane's Place feels like home with the music from an amazing musician, Tim Cook. Tim gave us permission to use the Subdued song, Them Figs, as our upbeat theme music. Tune into the next episode of Jane's Place, where dreams learn to fly.